So it's cold Monday afternoon, 2022. Crazy. So welcome to class, everybody. I hope you had a good break. Nice that you don't have an early start Monday mornings like I do. So what are we gonna do today? So we'll have a quick look at lesson one. So what are we gonna do today? So I'll have these for yes, it's good, and you guys deserve it. I know December is a bit of a crazy month. So we'll do a little get to know you. Get to know you. We'll go over the course at a high level. We'll install a software component that you're going to need. We'll do a kind of like a bird's eye view of how server-side scripting works, and we'll do a little introduction to PHP and write a few really simple pages before we get out of here for today. Okay, so every lesson will have your lesson objectives. So I've put in a link. Probably about half the class has responded. So it links to a discussion board topic. So if you haven't had a chance, if you could reply to this soon or even now, tell me a bit about yourself. Where are you from? Why did you pick the school and the program? What have you really liked in the program? If you have an idea of where you want to go in the future, that would be good to know. And then tell me, like, what's your favorite travel destination or the weirdest thing you have ever eaten. This is the first of our at least two classes we're going to have together. So this is your introduction to server-side scripting. We're going to use PHP, and then in the fall we're going to be back together for server-side scripting with ASP.NET. So this course is a prerequisite for that one. This is an intro. That course is a little more advanced. So we will have at least those two classes together. So I'll tell you a bit about me shortly, and then we'll do an overview of the class before we kind of dive into software and working with PHP. To tell you a bit about me, so my name's Rich, and I've been a web developer for a long time, 23 years now. And I've done a lot of different projects in that time. For most of it, I worked for this guy. So I ran my own business called In Front of the Net, focused on custom web development. I still have the business, but I've sort of transitioned all my big clients away. Now that I'm mostly teaching, I still maintain a few small projects, but don't do anything too big. So what kind of stuff have I done in this space? Lots of commercial development, social media, did a lot of e-commerce, and I've worked a lot in the not-for-profit sector. 23 years, pretty much anything under the sun I've had a chance to do. So how come I chose to be a web developer, which I know from reading the discussion posts that's a career that'll interest many people in the class, which is great. Interesting work, always learning new things, great job market, ability to take your skills somewhere, often flexible hours, and just fun. It's an enjoyable way to make a living. So how did I get into this business way back in 1999? Web developers are not born, although I do have a bit of good genetic code. There's my mom. My mom's turning 81 in a couple of weeks. She was actually one of the first female programmers for IBM. This was way back in the mid-'60s. So you're thinking that I must have a degree in computer science. I don't actually. I do have a university degree, but it's actually in political science, which my older daughter is actually studying in university right now. Then a little while ago, I decided to go back to school. So I went to Ontario Tech. I got a master's degree in education. So I have had this experience this was a fully online degree. So I spent 3 years as a fully online student. So I've been in your shoes. I know what it's like to learn online in these kinds of sessions where you can't be together in class. So I understand some of the challenges and frustrations with it. So how did I get into the business as a developer? When I graduated from school, I wanted to see the world. So I moved to South Korea, where I was an English teacher. Taught there for a while. It was my first teaching job way back in the late 90s. Eventually, I came back to my hometown, went back to school, took an IT program, came out of school, started looking for a job. I got hired, and I got to do some cool work. We worked in healthcare field. We worked in transportation. We even worked, I mean, keep in mind, this is a long time ago, 20 years ago, on building sort of first generation mobile apps. All in all, my starter job was great. Liked the projects, worked for a great boss, made friends, kept my own schedule, could work from home. Every couple of weeks I got paid pretty decent wage for a young developer. So we built a mobile app for diabetes patients that was really popular, but there was an issue with it. My boss never actually figured out how to make any money from it. We built this cool app, but there was no revenue attached. Eventually, company ran out of money and everyone was laid off and unemployed. I started looking for work again, but by now I had some experience, I had a bit of a network, and people started asking me if I could work for them. I said, yep, put on my developer hat, and now I was freelancing, I was my own boss. Anybody in the class think that someday you might like to be your own boss, have your own business, or be a freelancer? Yep. Okay, it is, and it's really common. Yeah, so a lot of people said that interests them. So I can give you a bit of a window into what this looks like. Overall, it was great. And I'll tell you why. Yep, I liked being my own boss. I could work from home. I took on the projects that I wanted to do, said no to the ones I didn't want to do. I was always getting to learn new things, made a decent income, kept my own schedule. I also had two young daughters at home, and I got to be around them all the time. Yep, Raj, I'm sure you do. So I would see my kids more in one day than a lot of my friends saw their kids in an entire week. So it was challenging at times, but I wouldn't have traded that time to get to be home with my kids when they were little. Yeah, so Raj mentioned, so those are some of the ups. Here are some of the downs. Regular paychecks, well, you don't get those. Benefits, like things like health insurance, you don't have that. Paid vacation time. And you do have a good deal of stress because ultimately the responsibility for getting things done falls on you and keeping your clients happy. So, who did I work for? I worked in retail. Walmart Canada was a big customer for a while. Worked for a number of nonprofits like Legal Aid Ontario. Had clients into the transportation industry, real estate, building and engineering, among others. So some of the challenges when you're self-employed, some of the things you have to know is that, yeah, you don't have that steady paycheck. Your work also tends to be very irregular. So you'll have time when you have lots of projects and you're overwhelmed, and then you have other times when you don't have enough work. So you have this real kind of cycle to it. You're also going to spend a lot of time working when people with regular jobs are not working. Typical day as a self-employed developer looks something like this. You will answer a ton of email. You will obviously have to find time to do your coding, your design and development work. You got to pick up the phone when it rings. You have to quote for upcoming projects. You have to plan your existing contracts. Everyone's favorite, you get to play tech support for your customers. And you have to teach yourself new technology and stay on top of things. You no longer have a boss to send you on training or a manager who you can just go and ask anytime you need to learn something new. So you got to do this stuff on your own. But you can see you're never bored. So how do you succeed as a web developer? What have I learned? What kind of skills are relevant? This is probably the most important one. You have to be able to learn independently. Things change really fast. Whatever we teach you here at Georgian and at Lakehead, in 5 years, 7 years, things are going to be done differently. There's new tools, new technologies coming out all the time. So you can't stay static in this industry. You've got to be learning, and you have to learn how to learn on your own. Ultimately, being a web developer is largely about problem solving. We have a client organization. They have some sort of need to have an application built. We're trying to solve problems for them by using the tools in our developer toolbox. And that requires our ability to listen to what people really need, so that not only do we build working solutions, but those solutions address the concerns and needs of our clients. Time management and deadlines are critical skills. This is what it looks like in the real world. So back in 2009, my company, I hired a bunch of students who were really good students who were working for me back then. And we built part of the Walmart Canada online photo center. We had a contract with a firm deadline. It was some day in October back in 2009. And they wanted a firm deadline because they sent out a weekly newsletter by email. They sent it to 85,000 subscribers. And they asked us, what is the go live date for the new photo center? Because they wanted to promote it on their mailing list. So imagine I agree to a date, Walmart sends it out and tells 85,000 people the new photo center is online this day at this time. And then the day of the launch, I call the project manager or my contact and say, you know what would happen if I'm going to be late? The site isn't going to be ready. And I tell them this at the last minute. What kind of response do you think I would get from this kind of customer? After they've promised 85,000 people their new website is ready, yeah, they are not going to be happy. They might sue me, Terry, they could. All of those things are possible. This ultimately is what they're going to say. See you later. We're going to go find another supplier who can deliver on their commitments, because I will have made them look bad to their very large customer base if I couldn't deliver on time. So I'm firm with deadlines and due dates, but that is not because I like being a hard ass. That's to prepare you for the reality that this is a project-driven business and projects have deadlines. And your bosses, your clients, they're going to expect that you can deliver quality work and deliver it on time so that they can make their commitments. So what's the job market like right now? I take a survey. I run this search the start of every semester. So I jumped on Indeed on the weekend, threw in the terms web developer in Ontario, came up with almost 2,500 current job openings. So there's lots of opportunity. But remember, you're not limited to Ontario, right? You can go anywhere. You want to live here, you want to live here, you want to live here, or here. As long as you got a laptop, you got a decent internet connection, you can take these skills and you can make a living. Salary-wise, Indeed tells us that the average web developer salary in Canada is $67,000. Obviously, that's not an average starting salary, but experienced developers can actually make more than that in the right environment. So that's a bit about my web development background. So why am I here with you guys as opposed to continuing that career? So that is an excellent question. So I started at Georgian as a part-time instructor 12 years ago, 2010. So PHP was actually the first course I took. I was really just looking to get out of the house. I'd been working from home for over a decade by myself, felt a little isolated, contacted Scott, who I knew kind of very casually, and said, if you ever need somebody for a part-time course, I'd be happy to teach. So I taught as a part-time instructor for a couple of years. Full-time position opened up in 2012. I applied. I was lucky enough to get the job. So I've transitioned away from being a full-time developer to being a full-time instructor. And I just kind of do a few small side projects. So why did I do this? And, why am I here? Teaching's really become my real passion. So this slide shows you some of the employers and some of the job titles that students I've taught are doing out in the web development world. And really, the reason I get up every morning, the reason I'm doing this is I want to help you guys get to wherever it is you want to go. Whether you want to be a web developer, another kind of developer, my job is to support you in any way I can. And that's both while we're here together in class at Georgian, but even afterwards, when you move on to Lakehead and when you move out into your career, I like to keep in touch with students and do whatever I can to help you build the kind of careers that you want. So my philosophy basically boils down to this. My commitment to your learning matches your own commitment to your learning. So the harder you work and the more effort you put into wanting to learn, the more you can demand from me in terms of help by email, by office hours, by referrals and reference letters, industry contacts. The harder you're working, the more I'm willing to invest in your own education. If you don't really care, you just want to get through and earn your credit, well, that's fine. I mean, people have different motivations. But if you aren't putting a lot into your education, I'm not going to put more effort into your education than you are. So the more you're here, the harder you're working, the more engaged you are, the more you can ask from me in terms of supporting you. But this is, seeing students out and working and doing great things. This is really what gets me up in the morning and gets me on here. And so hopefully we'll get to know each other well. As I said, we're going to be having at least 2 classes together, but I do try to maintain relationships. I mean, I think you guys are the 4th section of the 4th year we've had the Lakehead group, and I've been teaching the PHP and ASP.NET courses in all of them. So, and I still keep in touch with a lot of those students that are now actually in their last semester at Lakehead. They were all in this class in your shoes where you guys were 3 years ago here. So I will encourage you, if you haven't already, so thanks to those who have gone in and introduced yourself in the forum. Please go ahead and participate in this if you haven't already. Again, the better we know each other, I think the more enjoyment you're going to have in the class, and the better able I am to support you. Okay, so that was one. Was that I want to go over the course kind of from a high level, how I do things. I'm not going to read the syllabus to you. You're adults and you can read, but I'll just go over the important stuff, and then happy to take any questions. So for now, I'll have office hours on WebEx. I guess we'll find out. I'm still hopeful that we will be able to go back to class eventually. My office is in N building if we are able to get there. So I'll have office hours midday Tuesday for 1 hour, and then midday Wednesday for 2 hours. And please book an appointment. There's a booking link here. It will show you the availability, and you can just book a 15-minute slot on Calendly. This automatically sends me an email and adds your appointment to my calendar. If you need an appointment at a different time other than these, send me an email. I typically will have some flexible time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so we can try to set up an appointment. The only other thing I ask you about booking office hours is if you book an appointment and then you don't need it, please cancel it so that it will be removed from my schedule and someone else could book that time slot. Don't leave an appointment and not show up. Okay, seeing a couple questions, excellent questions here. So Raj, the college was planning to let us know, I think by the end, they haven't given a firm date of when they would be deciding, but they said mid-January. So either maybe the end of this week or early next week, they will announce whether they're extending online learning. And if they do, that might still be tentative. Like it's a possibility they might extend online learning to say reading week at the end of February and then hope to go back to campus for March or April. So they're not necessarily committed to announcing the rest of the semester at their next announcement. We don't know. Ethan, no. There are no required textbooks in any of my classes. Okay? I am not a big textbook teacher, and I find it's really hard to get up-to-date textbooks in this space. Right? By the time things are written, edited, published, a lot of the times the technology has actually changed. I know some students like learning from having a textbook as a resource. If you are one of those students and you would like a textbook recommendation, I'm happy to recommend one that might support your learning in this course, but there certainly isn't one required, and I'm not going to make any reference to a textbook. And just a note, I do want to highlight this. I am not on my devices. I do unplug. I'm not on my devices every waking minute. So I will typically respond to email within 24 hours during the school week, but then by Friday evening and over the weekend and on holidays, you should not expect a response until the next school day. Occasionally I'm working nights or weekends, but I try not to when I can. Try to get my work done and have a bit of a life. So just don't be upset if you email me at 9 o'clock at night that you wait for, on a Saturday that you wait for a response. During the work week, I try to respond really quickly. So we will meet Mondays. If we do get onto campus, our classes in E104, which is a really large classroom down in the base, down in E building. Unfortunately, it has no windows, but there's lots of space in there. Our reading week is the family day week. So the Monday is a holiday anyway. So that is, keep in mind, that's the Georgian reading week. It is different from the Lakehead reading week following the Georgian schedule. In terms of your assignments, here's how you're graded. We'll have a midterm exam. It will either be in class or it will be like live synchronous on Monday afternoons on WebEx if we're still online. And same with the final exam. Hopefully we're in class. If not, it will be an online timed exam that it's not a take-home exam. You do it at home, but we do it during a scheduled time. So everyone does the exam at the same time. And so the exams are worth 35%. You'll have some small labs or class learning activities. Might be a small programming task or something like a discussion board. There'll be 4 labs, each worth 2.5%. There'll be a quiz most weeks. Leslie, I'll answer your question in a second. So almost each week, with a few exceptions, you have a 5-question review quiz, and you have until the quiz will open after class on Mondays, and you have until Sunday night at midnight to do it. So that's 10 really easy percent. And then 2 assignments, one due before reading week, one due after reading week. Yes, we will have a quiz this week. So it'll open at 3 p.m. today, and then it will be open until Sunday at midnight. And I'll show you where to find the quizzes. The exams, the final exam will be all practical. So it's simply a coding exercise. The midterm exam will either be a combination of quiz and practical, or it may also be all practical. I don't reuse my exams, so I make them up every semester. So I haven't quite decided if there will be a quiz component on the midterm or not. But ultimately, for your final exam, I want you to code. I don't really care if you can answer questions. I care that you can write working code. That's the important thing in that. That's the important outcome. And assignment 2 will be an extension of assignment 1. So instead of building 2 totally separate projects, you're going to extend assignment 1 with assignment 2, which also gives you good reason to make sure you do assignment 1 and you get a working project, because you're going to need it to add on additional features in assignment 2. For code editors, I would recommend, traditionally I've used PHP Storm by JetBrains. I'm going to try to use Visual Studio Code this semester. Was it Jeremy that taught you guys your HTML fundamentals class last semester? I think it was Jeremy, wasn't it? Yes. And did he use Visual Studio Code? Oh, he used Atom. Okay. All right. You can use whatever editor you like, really. I'll probably use VS Code. Yeah, Jeremy is actually a graduate of the web program. So he was a student of mine. Jeremy took this course from me many years ago. Yeah, I know no, Andrew, it's interpreted. It's not compiled. Yeah, we'll use Visual Studio, not Visual Studio Code, the full-blown Visual Studio. We're going to use that in our ASP.NET course in September. So you don't need it this semester, but you'll need it. I think you'll need it for your C# course this semester. And we'll use it for ASP.NET in the fall. Yep, PHP Storm. Tyler, here's the trick. I should show you this. If you use PHP Storm, the answer is yes and no. Let's just go there for a minute. So PHP Storm says that it has a 30-day trial. However, if you register as a student, they give you a license key that will extend your 30 days into a renewable 365-day trial. So as long as you can download PHP Storm, and as long as you register, you can then add your license key into PHP Storm. And that's renewable every 365 days. Iraj, it lets you run it. It doesn't say it, but after 30 days, it will lock you out unless you register. Doesn't matter, Jerry. In fact, I'll show you what it looks like once you've registered with PHP Storm. So if you have PHP Storm and you want to check, if you open it up, if you go to register under help and register, so I've already registered and it's good until August. So if you activate a license, it just lets you put in your JetBrains credential, and then it will change your 30-day trial into a 365-day trial that is renewable. So you can use whatever editor you like. You can use Atom, you can use PHP Storm, you can use Visual Studio Code. They will all work. We're going to use Git and GitHub a lot. How much work have you done with Git and GitHub from last semester? None. Okay, well, we're going to fix that. Okay, that's good, Yama. Git is a absolutely critical industry skill. So we will start with Git. Okay, that's good. Good for you, Tawani. We will start with Git in a few weeks, bit with Unity, Ethan. Yeah, so everybody's going to be really comfortable with Git. I know you're going to be using, you guys have a class with Jarrett this semester, Intro to OO? Probably on your schedule. Yeah, so Jarrett and I will beat you guys over the head with Git. So all your assignments and everything will be submitted through GitHub. You'll be using MySQL, which you'll be using in your relational database class. Yes, Jarrett, right. And FileZilla and AWS, you probably worked with, and OpenVPN, you probably worked with these tools with Jeremy last semester. So we'll be using these same tools again. So you should already have an AWS hosting account. Okay. Yeah, the server that they gave you, the lamp.computer studies, that is the AWS server that you needed the OpenVPN to connect to. So that was on Amazon Web Services. So you have those things already. Your MySQL, you'll be installing this in your relational database class. Okay, we will get it working. So don't worry about that. Yep, you get everything. And who's your relational database teacher this semester? I know we sometimes have different people teaching that class. I used to teach it. I haven't taught it for a long time. Comp 2003. Okay, you've got Mazir for that. That's great. Mazir, you'll love Mazir. So a lot of the things you learn, you do with MySQL in Mazir's class. Okay, thanks, Alessio. A lot of those things, they complement what we're doing in our PHP class. So, and a lot of the learning between the classes will reinforce each other. So here's roughly our schedule. We'll do an intro today. We're going to start being able to capture data and save it to a database starting next week. We'll get into Git and GitHub in week 4. Then we have a 3-week stretch with no class because first we have family day and then we have reading week. Normally our midterm exam would be here in week 7, but we will push it till after reading week. And then we'll have a few more classes and our final exam is, well, it's yet to be scheduled. So Lakehead will schedule the exam. The exam is typically not during the class day and time. It's typically on another day of the week, another time. I have no control over when the exam is. Lakehead will schedule it and they'll post it. So how are people successful in the class? Number 1, come to class as much as you can, okay? Yes, I will record the classes and I will post them. So on my YouTube channel, I have a playlist for Comp1006G. So I will upload the recordings later on Monday. You can find the playlist link right here under Weekly Learning Tools and Resources. There's the link to our playlist. So if you're not able to attend the live class, you have to work, you have family commitments, you can do the work as long as you complete it by the next class, but it is really designed as a synchronous class. You'll learn the most, you'll enjoy it the most. You can get immediate help when you're here in class on a Monday. Yeah, I will upload, once the WebEx meeting's done, it has to convert them to MP4s, and then I upload them. So typically by Monday evening, they're uploaded to YouTube. And I will do this even if we go back to campus. If you look, actually, I've actually been recording all of my classes since 2015. So every lesson I've done for the last 7 years, 6.5 years is actually on YouTube. So even when we go back to campus, students still, one of my colleagues started doing this a few years ago, and he said, trust me, students love this, that they can go back and watch part of a lesson even if they were there. So everything, so if you want to see, for example, here's our class, here's the Lakehead section of this class from last year. I'll change things somewhat. But like if you want to look ahead, like here's all the lessons, and we'll do a lot of similar stuff this year, but it will be a little different. We'll build a different application, but here's all 13 lessons from the Lakehead section last year. 29 videos here. Yeah, and sometimes, you know, your computer slows down, or you get the blue screen of death, or you just get stuck on something and you get behind, or your dog is peeing on the floor, and like, I get it. So this way, if you miss something, you can, yeah, then you can always stop and go back and watch the lessons. Right, so yeah, if you are trying to code and take notes, I know it can be difficult. Like I can't multitask, so even if we make it back to campus, or we make it back to campus in September, everything will always be here. So yes, Alexander. So here I'll show you. So not only are the videos on YouTube, but the code we do every week, and the link is here on D2L as well. So here's the YouTube playlist. Here's the link to my GitHub page. And my username stands for In Front of the Net, which was my company. So all of the code I've done from every class in every course, it's also all public on GitHub. Okay, so last year we built in my Lakehead section, we built basically like a grocery store. So you can see here are all the weekly lessons. You can see the different lessons with descriptions of what we did each week. So I will do this in this class. So at the end of every class, I'll upload the code to GitHub. So again, if you missed class or you couldn't get something to work, you have my GitHub repository to refer to. And again, this is not just because we're learning online. I do this in class anyway. And you will be posting all your work and your assignments on GitHub. They'll just be private. And so here's, for example, the fall class from Lakehead. So everything is here. Everything you need, all the code's on GitHub, and all the lessons are on YouTube, as well as the other material that's here on D2L. So you've already got OpenVPN set up, so I don't need to go over that. Instructions on how to connect to the web server are here. So make sure you stay plugged into D2L. If there's something you don't understand, Menken, you will submit the links to your GitHub repositories through D2L. You don't actually upload the files. You're just going to submit a link to your work on GitHub and link to your live website on the AWS web server, but you don't actually upload the files on D2L. And to succeed, I'll be honest with you, I'm a fairly demanding instructor. I ask a lot from my students, but that's because I want you to learn a lot. It's possible, certainly possible, to get good grades in my class. If you do all the work, it's very possible to get, 90, 100% in my class, so long as you do the work. Okay? And also you submit on time. So we talked about deadlines earlier. My late policy is a 20% deduction per day late. So all your assignments will be due Sunday night at midnight. So if you hand in something on Monday, the maximum grade you'd be able to get on it is 80%. One other thing I want to note, I probably should have mentioned this. Oh, well, sorry, we'll go over it a little further down. Make sure you understand the rules around academic integrity. I unfortunately have to deal with this every single semester. These are the number of students in my classes that I have caught submitting work that is not entirely their own. Last semester was not actually terrible. There were only 2 students. These 4 of these from last winter, these were in this class. 2 of these were in Lakehead in my PHP class. I had students who were friends who submitted the same work to me very clearly. Yeah, that was the semester from hell. It was awful. So I use a code comparison tool that shows me side by side. It lets me look at 2 projects and see that work is similar. And I will also mention that all of your work, you're not submitting group work in this class. And your assignments can also be subject to a code review. So if you submit work to me, yeah, that's right, Alexander. Well, that's what the code comparison tool shows me. When all those spacing, indenting, tabbing comments are the same, but the variable names are different, I can see these things. If you submit work to me that I suspect isn't your own, I'm going to call you to a code review meeting where I'm going to ask you to walk me through your assignment and answer questions. Yeah, Raj, you can talk to somebody, but you can't share code with them. Now, one of the other things I probably should have put it in the syllabus, can you use code you find online? Yes, but there are some rules around it. You can't wholesale copy a tutorial that you found online or on YouTube or Stack Overflow or GitHub. You can't just copy a project and submit it as your own. Could you find a snippet of code that you find online? Yes, but if you do, it can only be a small amount of your project. You have to include the link where the code comes from, and you need to check with me first. So send me a link, say, hey, Rich, I found this piece of code. I want to use it in my assignment to do this. Is this okay? But you can't wholesale copy a tutorial or something like this. If you need extra time on an assignment, we can discuss it, but you have to have a good reason, like illness or family emergency, because your project's not done, or you lost your work, or you have a whole bunch of other assignments. I'm not going to grant extensions for those reasons. But I'm not an unreasonable person. I know some of you have work demands, families, things can happen outside of your control where it's reasonable to give you extra time. One thing I don't offer, though, is there's no ability to submit late work at the end of the term. You need a 50 to pass. You have to earn it. If you don't submit something during the semester and you're not happy with your grade in April, you can't submit work that was due previously to try and pull your grade up. Okay, I get that request every single semester. It's not fair to everyone else in the class who did the work on time to let one student submit work really late because they're not happy with their grade. So there's lots of opportunities to earn marks. If you do all the assignments, you should earn your 50. And if you don't earn your 50, you don't want a credit in this class because you're not going to be ready for ASP.NET, which is a lot more complex. Quite a bit, Raj. I would suggest this course is kind of like learning to ride a bicycle, and ASP.NET is more like learning to ride a motorcycle. So if you can't balance on a bicycle, I'm not doing you any favors, right? To say, okay, go ride a motorcycle now. Okay, Aiden, good question. So you find something online that you want to use in your assignment, you mean? And but you need to modify it to work in your project. Is that the scenario you're kind of talking about? Yeah, it comes out different. In that case, I suggest just send me a link to it before you use it. Just check with me. Email me and say, I'm trying to implement this feature and I found it on this site. And I would say, just put a comment in the code, you know, code adapted from with a link to the site. So I know you didn't create it out of thin air, right? That you leveraged work that someone else did and adapted it, which is fine. It's something that we do all the time. But just check with me and cite it. So I'm not thinking it's entirely your own original creation. When in doubt, safest thing to ask. So quizzes will be due, Roger, every week, every folder, there's a checklist telling you what you should have done before the next class, basically by next Sunday night. So this week's quiz will be in the lesson 2 folder. It'll be available after class today. Okay, so there's the lesson 2. I have to fix the link. So I will just add it. So we've got a quiz. There's the week 1 quiz. Okay, so the week 1 quiz will be available at 3 o'clock today. So there is a checklist in every folder telling you exactly what you have to do and when it's due. So you shouldn't need to email me saying, what do we have to do this week and when is it due? It's already posted, will already be posted to D2L for you for every week. There are a few weeks without quizzes, but most weeks there is a quiz. Yes, Lincoln, exactly. Okay, your syllabus is here. I do have to update it. I made a few changes to it. So it's under course information. So a few other things here. There's an optional project. This is not graded, but this is just a project you can work on to practice your skills if you're so inclined. You could do it on your own. You could work with classmates. It isn't something you have to submit to me. It's just a sample project that you could work on if you wanted to. So it's here under tools and resources as well. As well as links to the PHP docs. Now there is one item in here under connecting to the web server. You can open up this item so you can see the path under weekly learning, useful links, tools, and resources. If you open up connecting to the web server, now I don't know if you did this with Jeremy or not. Did you install a local web server in your HTML class with Jeremy? You might have, you might not have. Okay, you didn't? Okay. We need to install, okay, yeah, so that's the live server. That's the Amazon Web Service, our account on AWS, Lamp.Computer Studies, which you're going to use to post your assignments. But when we're just working in class each week, it's going to be much faster and more efficient to use a local web server. So I want you to go ahead and install. You can install either of these, but I recommend XAMPP. So here's the link. It's free. It will run on any operating system. So you can download and install XAMPP, and you can just accept all the default options. You don't have to change anything in your installation. Yeah, you don't have to use XAMPP. You can use any local web server. XAMPP's probably the most popular. It's the one I'm going to use. You can use WAMP. You can use MAMP if you're on a Mac. You can use whatever you want. So yes, Edan, if you have your own, then a different one, that's fine. So I think here's what we'll do. I'm going to stop the recording now. This will take probably a few minutes. So go ahead and install XAMPP. Yeah, we'll deal with MySQL in a few weeks. We won't worry about it yet. We'll start working with MySQL in a couple of weeks. So you can install the server, and then we will take a break. We'll take a pause, and we'll come back at 1 o'clock. So install the local web server for your operating system. And then I'm going to go brew a coffee. We'll take a break, and we will resume and start working with this at 1 o'clock.